All right, folks, welcome back to the track. WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca welcomes you for the Java House Grand Prix, and we're about to get going with practice session number 2 of the Radical Cup North America. This will be a 45-minute session. Hopefully we'll see some speeds drop, although the marine layer, as we were talking about a few minutes earlier, has increased slightly, but we still stay hopeful. We're going to have probably up here Tom Drewer from Radical Cup North America talking a bit. They're about getting to the track. Green flag is dropped. We can see as the cars are going through the Andretti curve, getting onto the track in that area. You can see in the background there is a little bit of that marine layer as they talk about that's increased. Nothing too severe. As we said, I've seen it far worse. We're seeing a little bit of mist on the cameras. We call it the coastal sunshine here in Northern California. We want to thank some of the Radical Cup North America drivers, especially younger drivers that came out yesterday for the pre-party on Alvarado Street. It's become quite the tradition here with WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. We do it before every event, whether it is the Moto America events or the Rolex Monterey Motorsports reunion or the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. So it's become a real tradition. A couple of hours of fun, some raffles, talking to people, talking to some of the drivers, looking at the cars, and you know, getting a chance for everybody to really get up close and personal. And it was really great to listen to Austin Riley, the number 20 driver in the Pro 1500 class, with his sponsors Racing for Autism, and you know what he had going on with this program. So that was great. That was one of the highlights of yesterday afternoon. So we're going to see some lap times here once they get a little heat in the tires. Not too much to talk about right now. And at 11:50 this morning, we're going to have car corral laps happening in the infield. And the next Porsche Sprint Challenge practice will be at 11:20. And here's Tom showing up. We've got our entry list. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. So, Tom, how's it looking out there?
Well, as we can see from the cameras, it's a little wet. Precipitation, unexpected. And, of course, these drivers, this is the final practice session before qualifying. And at the moment, it's a slick track with slicks. And Austin Riley, car 20, has just found that the conditions are particularly trying. So that's coming up turn 7.
Yep, just before the Rahal straight up the hill. That area seems to collect people quite a bit. And I think I jinxed him just talking about him a few seconds ago before this incident happened.
Yeah, look, interesting as the red flag comes out. We'll have to collect Austin Riley. You can see he's buried well deep into the gravel trap, and the emergency crews around here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, always quick to be on hand and already getting to that car to extract him out of the gravel trap. But these drivers were not expecting wet weather conditions. And again, it's not enough rain for wet tyres. So still running on full slicks at the moment. But tricky out there. And with only 40 minutes of practice remaining before we go qualifying, this will be a crucial session, particularly if the weather remains the same for that qualifying session. So young Austin Riley, a strong competitor, in fact a Pro 1340 champion who stepped up to the 1500 class. And if you don't know much about Austin's story, check out Racing with Autism. Unbelievable. This young man has obviously dealt with a lot more than most through his life, but racing has become really a pathway to dealing with autism. And not only that, he's become an ambassador for young kids, also suffering from autism, and just showing what you can do, that life doesn't have to be, it doesn't, you don't have to sort of prevent yourself from doing things just because you've got an affliction. Austin Riley is doing everyone proud, and in fact he started a movement. There are Racing with Autism chapters in Australia and in the UK, and in fact a few years ago when Austin won the championship in Pro 1340, he was over at Silverstone racing in the UK as prize for that championship, and a big contingent of fans coming out there to support him at Silverstone. So check out that cause. And Austin also always has a bit of merch for sale. He has some good ways to get involved. Quite often a raffle with a helmet, available, and Austin's actually out of that car, so that's surprising.
Well, you can see as they towed the car out, it shaved the gravel as they pulled it out just for the ground effects, and as we were talking about that drop-off around the track with that.
Yeah, I'm intrigued that he has got out of the car. I would have thought that would have been a relatively simple extraction and just get back on the racetrack and go again.
What it looks like from here is they're going to have to actually lift the car. So in that case, the driver is removed while they lift the car and put it back on the race surface.
So Austin coming back to the car at the moment. But look, the emergency crew doing a good job. So interestingly enough, about 9 minutes into this session, it's Chris McMurray, an old dog with plenty of tricks still left. He was circulating quickest. Now, we didn't seem to get too many actual times on the board, but certainly from his sectors, Chris McMurray was quick in the trying conditions, and he'll be one to look out for this weekend. I think Brady Clapham, who is coming off the back of some wins on the streets of Toronto, in the sister series, if you will, the Radical Cup Canada series. It'll be very interesting to see how Brady deals with some stiff competition this weekend in Chris McMurray and the Crown Concepts with Racing Radical Arizona team. So Race Control giving the 1 minute signal to the teams. And
this has to be completely unnerving to the teams, too, considering the qualifying is a little over 2 hours away.
Well, and the rain continues to fall. I mean, it's not as though the weather is clearing in any way, shape, or form. We can see a number of cars angled in the pit lane. Chip Roma ready to go. His son, Matt Roma, as well, right behind. So the yellow flag is being shown, and we're about to get the green flag yet again. You can see the teams, even with umbrellas out, shows the amount of precipitation that exists here at Laguna Seca at the moment. And the green flag is flying, and right at the front of the field, the 25 car of Spencer Schmidt has been told to hold. So just trying to get some clear air. So to Matt Roma. So it's Wayne Williams who will lead the pack out onto down into turn 2. That long exit road, pit exit road, you can't pop out onto the racetrack. The only time we'll see that is when the drivers are behind the safety car and start circulating for their pace laps before the races. Otherwise, it's trundling down the inside. You've got to be very, very careful that you don't lock up the brakes and end up on the racing surface down into this turn 2 hairpin. And then it's popping out back onto the circuit into turn 3. Wonderful 90-degree right-hander, followed by another one in turn 4. Really fun corners in high downforce cars. And then we're into turn 5 as we start climbing the hill.
Yeah, the corners here are either, sweeping and gorgeous or so severe that they're terrifying. There's a nice 50-50 mix on that. But you're right, getting onto the track is, for drivers who are not familiar with this facility, having to go all the way around that big sweep to get just past turn 2. And we're looking at our cameras with definite water on them.
Yeah, and you can see the undulation as they rise up. In fact, is it turn 6 at the
Correct.
at the top? We were just looking at where all the raindrops are on the camera. It's amazing how much of a dip there is, a compression through the middle of that corner. And again, you're gritting your teeth. You're trying to maximize the speed as you climb the hill towards the corkscrew.
And again, you hit 6, you bottom out as you're about to hit the apex of the corner, and you'll see that do just some very twitchy things, people's suspension, before they charge up the Ray Hall straight there.
So Chip Romer looking a little ginger as they come through turn 2, this fantastic, iconic hairpin here at WeatherTech Raceway. And you can see there all the drivers just finding their feet, trying to get a little bit of temperature back into the Hankook rubber. Of course, if qualifying is like this, it's going to be spectacularly exciting. 25 minutes is all they'll have to put a time on the clock.
You know, is going back to yesterday's fan party just for a second, though, I've got to tell you, Austin Riley held the crowd. He actually held court there, and for me, it was very informative, as I have a coworker whose son is on the spectrum with autism, and I took pictures and video of all that and sent it to him, and he went, "Oh my God!" He goes, "That's amazing. That's outstanding." So he immediately showed it to his kid. We had a car off in turn 11.
Yeah, that was
off and on.
That was Mike Anzaldi in that Rothmans Williams-esque liveried Radical, and just having a moment there. Yeah, young Austin Riley, he's a fantastic ambassador, and you know, a great driver as well. And it was interesting last year. It just seemed as though he had he was struggling to find the next step in terms of his driving performance. He had elevated through the ranks in Canada, won some championships, won the championship in Pro 1340, stepping up to 1500, very, very competitive in that class. And it just seemed as though the podium was evading him. And all of a sudden this year, he's managed to find more and podiums in each place we've been to. So at Sebring, Barber, and Road America. So he's looking to continue that streak this weekend, and we'll be excited to see what Car 20 can do.
He hit that stride where we all get it when we're learning how to race, which is, you know, getting yourself from that hero worship to your competitors of going, no, I'm just as good as them.
Yeah,
and
you're a peer.
And it's really interesting. I've talked to several people starting to teach race schools, and some of them are about an hour a day of just psychologically retraining yourself. How do you think? How do you perceive things? And it's
another spin there as well, and that's in turn 9. That was just, turn 9. So exit turn 9, another one for Mike Anzaldi, I think, by the looks of it.
The rainy curve.
And that is a fantastic corner. In fact, someone was asking me last night at the street party, you know, what is it like driving this wonderful circuit? And I said, honestly, coming from Australia, you know, Laguna Seca, it's world famous. You're aware of the corkscrew. I was very, very excited to get here. Obviously, when you walk the track, you can't believe the elevation change coming down the corkscrew. But as a driver, by the time you've set up for it, you're through it. And actually, in a downforce car, it's that next corner, that left-hander, turn 9, which is so exciting because you're just pulling gears flat out, gritting your teeth and holding on for dear life in a downforce car, and that's what these guys are doing. These cars, awesome pieces of machinery. You can see the big diffusers on the rear of the cars, big front splitters, and huge speed differential, as we just saw from the likes of Chip Romer as he made a pass on some of the SR3 cars going down into turn 2.
Yeah, you go through turn 9 and you're getting ahead of speed going. You're running through the gears, and it's just something that I've had other people tell me, get comfortable with feeling the front end drift just a little bit. You have to get comfortable with the movement. And I go, oh. So it took a little bit of time. Yeah,
it's a great circuit, old school circuits. There's nothing like them, and we're so fortunate to be joining IndyCar at so many fantastic circuits around the U.S.
Oh, it's definitely it's a more fan-friendly situation. The whole Ducati Lake in the center, I actually remember being here as a kid and watching the original configuration where turn 2, the Andretti hairpin, continued and went around all the way up to turn 5. So this was basically a glorified oval with a hill thrown in.
I was going to say a
measures.
bull ring.
Oh,
unbelievable.
It was a horsepower track. It was without a doubt a horsepower track. And I was fortunate enough to see the original runnings of the Can-Ams here. Which was just awe-inspiring.
I feel like Radical Cup is like the Can-Am of old, with the competition, the Canadians, the Americans, always vying for top spot, particularly in that 1340 class. Obviously, Austin Riley will be giving it all in Pro 1500 as well. And John Field is the man who's doing the business in the Platinum class at the moment, a 1:31.5. It's Matt Romer who's quickest in Pro 1500. I tell you what, Matt Romer in the Car 6 is the one to watch in Pro 1500 at the moment. He is impressive. Now, I don't think that I don't think that we've got the Primal Racing Championship leader out there. I'm just looking down through the charts, but Raider Nicole, I can't see his name, so he's perhaps electing not to go out in these tricky conditions. Valen Venkatesh just trundling through pit lane and storming up over the crest. You can see that was Louis Schreiber, it looks like, coming through the corkscrew. And there is Chip Romer in the Stella Artois car around the outside and then switches to the inside for turn 9. Again, tricky conditions. And not something that anyone was expecting. Beautiful weather leading up all throughout the setup days this week. And now the rain just continues to tumble. It's not particularly hard, but it's constant.
It's, just enough to make it a bit unsettling.
So Wayne Williams is starting to, well, I was going to say match John Field, but not even close. It's 3 seconds is the gap in terms of lap times. So John Field using all of his American Le Mans Series experience to full effect. And a wily old racer is Mr. Field. If you give him an inch, he will take it. Any kind of gap, you can expect and anticipate the nose of the 37 machine to be sending it down the inside, the outside, and every which way. I don't think he minds passing on the dirt or the grass either. John Field is spectacular to watch, and it will be interesting to see how the Platinum drivers contend with him this weekend. Spencer Schmidt had another good run. In fact, last time out at Laguna Seca, it was a big story because Sam Schmidt, of course, the S or the original S in the SP McLaren, long-time owner of the IndyCar team, said to his son, "Look, mate, you've got to get a podium. Otherwise, I'm not sure I can continue to support the racing." There was a bit of pressure on Spencer. Anyway, here last year in front of Dad, Mum, and lots of friends and family, he pulled together the podium he needed. I've never seen Sam so proud. You could tell that whilst there might have been a little bit of, he probably had a small glimmer of hope that he, wasn't going to have to fork out more money, but at the end of the day, he was super proud. And Spencer Schmidt looking to make a name for himself, and Spencer again should be a front runner in Pro 1500. He's second quickest in these conditions at the moment. With a Californian crowd, I suspect he is going to be strong this weekend. Bit of dust there.
Coming out of 4. Someone running it just a tad too wide there. But, it's funny, you were talking about that situation. Sometimes it just takes a little more pressure. And when you've got family applying it, no one can apply pressure like family.
Well, you're talking before about that sort of mental game the driver has. I don't think there's anyone that applies more pressure than yourself. And, it's interesting. I remember years ago, when I first came over, speaking to my fellow countryman David Brabham, and he was saying that even he, once he got to Formula One, had to learn that lesson that you were just speaking about. That you look at the other drivers, particularly the higher up you go, as being stars, and you look up to them, and you've got to realize that they are your peers, and if you're there, you're good enough to be alongside them.
And to be in front of them.
And exactly. And so it's interesting to get those perspectives from people that have reached the highest forms of the sport. You speak to sports psychologists as well, and even people that work with top athletes of all disciplines, as well as surgeons and people in high-pressure jobs, and they all have the same fear of failure. They all have those self-doubts. And it's just about working through that. And that's what makes motorsport so wonderful. It really is a sport where you understand that there is a limit, there is a consequence, and you've got to grit your teeth. You've got to find a way to push beyond what the brain says and extract the performance. And that's why it's so rewarding. It's awesome. You can see there that it's getting quite
damp.
Quite damp.
For lack of a better term.
Yeah, heading into the final corner, and you can just see the guys are quite tentative on the brakes. Big braking moment into the final corner here at Laguna. It can often catch you out. You've obviously trying to get the maximum exit onto the front straight, because it's a huge long straightaway here.
Yes, it is, with a slight increase in altitude.
Yeah, slight increase and a big kink.
Yeah,
so it's not particularly straight, but...
well, we can't have anything straightforward with this track.
But it's over...
These are British racing conditions here.
It is. The radicals are made for it. It's but it's over a 90-degree corner, and so it's so easy to outbrake yourself going in and then find yourself on the wrong trajectory coming out. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, a good sequence of corners, high-speed stuff leading into that final left-hander, and of course that has been the scene for so many fantastic passes throughout the ages. Some great runs down to the checkered flag.
There was one endurance race here that sticks in my mind, particularly where it was a Porsche 911 going against, I think it was Magnussen in one of the Corvettes, and they were slamming each other throughout the track, throughout the entire race, and after a 4-hour race, neck and neck coming out of turn 11, they took each other out, and it was almost like NASCAR. Both teams unloaded on the track at once, and I went, "Okay, are we in Charlotte? Where are we?" But that's not the norm here, of course. But this a lot of stuff that happens at this track, and I think that is part of my big love for this track, are counterintuitive. You go into turn 2, the Andretti hairpin. Every instinct, every fiber of your being is saying, hit the apex, drop down on the inside. However, if your momentum is up, your tires are working, and you can carry that outside line, you're set up for turn 3 and turn 4, dropping it right on the inside. But the stars have to line up.
Yeah, look, there's good passing opportunities around here. As you say, sometimes the outside line can be the one that will take you to glory. Of course, it's also a treacherous one, particularly on lap 1. Turn 2, as the cars go through, we can see Matt Roma just behind someone, chasing someone down. He's in the Michelob Ultra car. And, you've just got to make sure that if you're out on the outside doing that rim shot, that you're not going to be collected like some bowling pins as someone barrels down the inside.
Let's just say it's a commitment.
It is, but it can work very, very effectively, as you say. So there's Wayne Williams. He's getting some traffic at the moment. I think he's behind Dermot Ennis as they head down into the final corner, and Williams will have that lap effectively shot, and I think the next one as well. Needed to find some space to get some clear air. He's second quickest at the moment. He's certainly closed the gap to John Field. John Field now to 1:28.7. So the guy's still finding time out there in these conditions. Wayne Williams is down to 1:30.1. Chip Roma 1:30.5. Louis Schreiber, who was fastest in that first session, 4th quickest in the Platinum class at the moment. Mike Anzaldi not doing a bad job. He's 3rd quickest, and just as I say that, he's done me proud and has set an even faster lap time. So he's on a 1:34.5, 3rd quickest in Pro 1500. But it is still Matt Romer who is quickest in that class. Spencer Schmidt, although, curse of the commentator, Spencer Schmidt's just gone quicker. So 1:32.2 now for Spencer Schmidt, who's fastest in Pro 1500. And it's Mike Darden from Arizona, Crown Concepts, with Radical Arizona driver, the 69 machine of Mike Darden, coming in to be quickest in Pro 1340. And I love conditions like this because it's all down to the driver, and perhaps the driver that, doesn't have the confidence in the high speed or just can't quite commit sometimes to the downforce, just find something different in these trying conditions and in the damp. And Mike Darden, who wasn't quickest by any means this morning, he was around the mark, but it's Dermot Ennis that's 2nd quickest. Brady Clapham's relegated to 3rd, so the championship leader can't find the pace. He's miles off it, 10 seconds. But perhaps a couple of these drivers just electing to do some exploratory laps and call it a day. I mean, these conditions, it's such a tight turnaround between practice and qualifying. You can't afford to bin it.
And you're speaking of rookie drivers, the 3 and the the Pro 1340s. If they haven't had experience driving in the wet or in the damp, it's, again, something that's a period of adjustment, let alone in a track that's got this kind of elevation. So you got a double whammy, so to speak, happening there.
Yeah, we're getting reports today, this morning, that there was even a bit of water dripping off some of the bridges just from the overnight mist. Of course, the mist pretty common around here, and the fog can roll in. We were pleased that we didn't get any of that this morning. But its precipitation looks a bit clearer, though. There, that shot of the corkscrew, and that was Dermot Ennis coming through. So he's still touring around. Dermot Ennis, 2nd quickest in Pro 1340, the 88 machine. Ennis Racing, one of the slightly older gentlemen in the field, but proving that you don't have to be with a pro team to run Radical Cup. It's basically himself and a few mates, and they go racing and really enjoy themselves, looking to expand their operation based out of Florida, and this weekend partnering effectively with Rhino Racing. They're operating under the same tent. Again, good camaraderie in the paddock, and those guys teaming up to get the cars out west.
Sharing transportation costs is always the way to go. It's funny because you talk about someone getting together with their mates and doing this. Back in the old days, they would be the MX5 Cup here, and there were several drivers from here in the Carmel and the Monterey area that would actually drive their cars to the track, had their other wheels with them, race it, and then low man out of those 5 would buy dinner for the rest.
Yeah.
And they would pick the most extravagant restaurant they could find and really bleed the person, so to speak.
Yeah, well, the other one is really Sam McDougall. They're here with their father, and, Sam and Dad are pretty much privateers. They are operating alongside Cameron Racing and certainly entered by Cameron Racing this weekend, but really doing a bit of a privateer job, and it's great to see. Sam's got a big history of sim racing, and in fact, very, very proficient on the sim. Runs a lot of different online series with V8 supercar drivers from Australia and all sorts of top-level drivers. So converting that experience into the real world here this weekend for the first time. Big weekend for Sam, and great to see them on track. We've got so many stories up and down the paddock. The Venkatesh brothers, great to see them as well. Californians to cheer on the 15 of Valen Venkatesh, the younger brother of number 13, Arul Venkatesh. And Valen's having an outstanding rookie season, really has impressed. Come on strong, and I must say, older brother is not earning too many bragging rights at the dinner table.
No,
of
there's
late.
a certain humiliation factor that comes in.
Yeah, but we've got fathers and sons, brothers racing alongside each other, families in the paddock. We mentioned Rhino Racing, Mike Anzaldi, partnered with Simon Shepherd to form Rhino Racing, but Mike is often here with his parents, enjoying the festivities. Mike loves trucking across the country, making a real trip of things when it comes to racing. Same with Wayne Williams. He and his wife, motor coach across the country, work along the way, enjoy themselves as they experience all of the wonderful scenic spots around these racetracks. I mean, in Laguna Seca with Carmel, Monterey, the whole stretch of coastline here. You can't get much more spectacular in terms of finding an excuse to go motor racing on the weekend.
I have people that come here from races for the races just to go up Pacific Coast Highway when it's opened. Pacific Coast Highway from Los Angeles area. Some people come down from the Washington, Oregon area and just make it a week-long vacation.
Now we can see here there's quite a few cars just parked up in pit lane as Chip Roma starts another flyer. So you can see a little bit of moisture being kicked up there on the front straightaway. There's a couple of vague rivers starting to form. Elsewhere, it looks, it's just slick. There's no real standing water that we can see from that shot, but Chip Roma starts another one as trundling down is the 21 of Jack Yang, so he's back out on the racetrack. Jack, no stranger to conditions. You mentioned it was English weather, and Jack racing in the UK Championship. Also does a lot of racing in the Middle East. Not too much wet weather over in the Middle East, it must be said. Maybe some seed clouding from time to cloud seeding from time to time, but Jack has performed well in the championship. In fact, took a race win at Laguna Seca. At Road America last year. It was very competitive at Road America this year as well, and we're looking forward to seeing how the Chinese driver does. Supported by an English team, and it must be said, there's more Englishmen walking around this Radical Cup paddock than I've ever seen before. Some good cross-pollination from teams in Europe to America, and we're excited to have lots of people out in Virginia November 6 through 9 for the World Finals. We're racing alongside the Race of Remembrance, the Veterans Race of Remembrance, and that's the inaugural race for them at VIR in November. It'll also be the finale of USAC's Mustang Cup, and so it'll be a big weekend of racing and world titles up for grabs in terms of radical racing. So there'll be 4 world titles up for grabs.
That's fantastic. So honestly, Tom, what's just in my curiosity factor, where do you see the Radical Cup North America in, say, 5 years from now?
Well, I think it just, in many regards, more of the same, bigger and better. There's always lots of interest from teams getting into the championship. Our whole ethos with this series, really from the get-go, is that it's as much for the local driver as it is for the person chasing the championship. We want to give Radical owners all around the country an opportunity to come out and test themselves against the best racers at big tracks, at big events, and give them bucket list experiences. And so, this weekend, a number of locals joining the fray alongside, testing themselves against the top contenders in the championship. But again, more of the same in terms of developing the next generation of talent. And it doesn't matter whether you're coming at the sport as a 14-year-old or as a 44-year-old or even a 74-year-old. At the end of the day, motor racing is not, say, as age discriminatory as other sports out there. And we love to see drivers of all ilks and for that matter, skill levels. The championship is open for, depending on the class, FIA silver, FIA bronze, and then right down to people that are just starting off. And the great thing is, with race directors like Charlie Kimball up in race control, a lot of experiences is passed on to the next generation. And if we can keep producing top talent, of course, lots of drivers stay with the championship as well. But if we can continue to prove that this is an alternative pathway to the front of motorsport, we'll be doing our job.
Yep. I can imagine there's just a lot of young people coming out of karting championships and or returning veterans that are stepping back into it on a limited level, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think the great thing about Radical is, look, all motorsport, of course, is not cheap. It's relatively expensive as sports go, that's for sure. But at the end of the day, Radical is amazing bang for the buck. The performance of the cars, but also the fact that you can do 6 rounds, a full championship, high-profile events, makes this a very compelling series when you stack it up against the other series that are out there, and coupled with the performance of the car, the hospitality that the series puts on, the general atmosphere, it really is a pretty compelling argument if you want to go motor racing. And again, because the types of cars they are, high downforce cars, you can really apply your skills learnt in Radical Cup to everything else that you may go and do in your motor racing career. So, with under 10 minutes remaining, John Field still sits on the top of the charts, and at a 1:27.2. Wayne Williams is at a 1:29.4. Chip Roma is third quickest in the Platinum. Louis Schreiber with some work to do. Red Nicole has finally set a time, so whilst the rest of the Pro 1500 drivers were out there circulating by themselves, Nicole just taking a breather. He has just reminded everyone why he is leading the championship. A 1:31.8 for Nicole. Fastest in Pro 1500 from Spencer Schmidt. And then Matt Roma has been relegated to third quickest. The Englishman Andy Lowe right up there, though, fourth in class. And Mike Anzaldi, who we saw had a couple of spins early on in fifth quickest. And we've just had Chip Roma take that exit road between 9 and 10. So a couple of drivers returning to the paddock early, as Wayne Williams comes back out of the extended pit lane onto the circuit. And following him through, I want to say that's Spencer Schmidt, who's returning to the circuit. So with 8 minutes remaining, a couple of guys trying to put in some lap times. This is the final few tours before qualifying commences. And it's Mike Darden who still leads the way in Pro 1340 from Dermot Ennis and Brady Clapham.
Yep, less than 2 hours away from qualifying, so fuel, check everything out, do any last-minute adjustments. You talked about the Hankook tires. What tire selections are available, or what options are there during a race day?
It's one spec tire. Okay. So the tire regulations are that there is an allocation that is granted effectively 2 sets from qualifying. So at the moment, they're free to use as many sets as they want during practice. But to keep the budget in line, it's 2 sets from qualifying. That puts quite a burden on the SR10 drivers because that car does consume tyres a little bit more than the SR3. And look at that, 3 wide almost. Wow. So Ray Nicole not shying away from trying to put in some quick laps here as we count down in this session.
Just under 7 minutes right now.
But the drivers can elect how they consume those tyres, and really it's not even 2 sets. It's actually 8 tyres. So, and that's Louis Schreiber getting all out of sorts on the painted curbing. Don't want to do that in these conditions.
No. Let's avoid the rumble strip, shall we?
But yeah, so you can elect when to use that new rubber. And in fact, I don't know if I've ever seen it, but there'd be nothing stopping you taking more fronts than rears and things like that if you wanted to. Of course, when it goes wet weather condition and they're out on the wet tyres, they have to still be on the Hankook wets, but again, we don't limit the number of wets that are consumed. Obviously, that really comes down to just how wet the track is and how quickly those tyres burn up. But it does mean that you'll see different strategies. Obviously, everyone will elect to start off with brand new rubber for qualifying, But then it's the question of, do you remain on that rubber for race 1 or do you go to a brand new set? And some people, depending on where they qualified, will decide to put on another set of new boots for that race 1, because the grid for race 1 is set from qualifying, but the grid from race 2 is actually set from the fastest laps in race 1, and then the grid for race 3 is set from the fastest laps in race 2. So what that means is, if you didn't qualify so well, which we might see play out here a little bit later today, so we get a fantastic close-up of Kenny Nail racing for Graham Rahal Performance, it might mean that you can actually climb up the order. And we do see that from time to time where someone has a bad qualifying session, and then you have to be reminded by your team quite often in the race to, hey, maybe you need to get a bit of clear air. If you're fighting for someone, you can't get past them, just back off a bit, get some clearer space, put in a burner, because it's important to get the lap time in to set the grid for the subsequent race.
We're 4.5 minutes now before the end of this session.
And there is Andy Lowe, the number 4, coming through in the yellow, black and white car.
So this racing series started in '97. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, so Radical Cup has been going for as long as Radical has. And in different variants, really. Originally, there was a Cup series run by Spring Mountain, and funnily enough, I used to be involved in that from an organisation standpoint as well. And then Radical taking over the series as changes were made to the way that cars were distributed in the country. And from there, we regrew the series really from a grassroots level right up to supporting IndyCar now. And it's great to see so many drivers take part. But it's only just the tip of the iceberg. You know, if we get 30-odd cars, maybe 40 cars here out at the Radical Cup North America Series, that pales in insignificance compared to the numbers, and it's been a big moment. So that's Wayne Williams, who's dumped a wheel off the side of turn 4, and has then had a big tank slapper. It's ended back up in the gravel.
It got his attention, let's say.
Well, Wayne Williams, a dirt track star, he came to Radical Cup racing from the world of sprint cars and loves high horsepower. Interestingly enough, is more comfortable typically in these conditions than he is in the dry. He loves the car working around underneath him. Another great close-up. That's Scott Wagner in the number 8 machine. You can see the American flag, and Wayne Williams is back on track. The American flag and the Canadian flag. Scott Wagner, a Canadian now residing in America. And the two SR10 drivers close together. We're starting to see some racy shots from the cameramen who are just practicing their wares at the moment. And it will be exciting to see how qualifying goes. Raiden Nichols just showed everyone up, not just the Pro 1500 class, but the Platinum class as well. He's fastest outright at the moment. So the young gun in a 1500cc engine has just eclipsed the 2.3 litre turbocharged cars of the Platinum class. Raiden Nicol, a 1:25.7 shows what this circuit can bring in terms of pace. So there is time to find out there if you're willing to brave it. And you can see how aggressive he was just a few laps before.
He put in 2 really fast sectors in 1 and 2.
He just blitzed it.
Oh, absolutely. Just did a 1:25.7, and that was no small feat, considering the conditions and where he was at in the field. He just waited, like as you stated, just looking for some clear track. So we just had on shot, that was Luke Kendall, the other young gun from the Primal Racing outfit, the 54 machine. And he will be one to watch as well. Drivers making the trek all the way from Georgia. So you can tell the difference between the classes
on the timing screen, but also on the cars themselves. If you look at the rear wing, there's Dayglow stripes on either side of the rear wing, just near the end plates. And the red-orange indicates the 1500 class, the Dayglow green indicates 1340, and the bright yellow indicates the Platinum class. It's also easy to tell the Platinum class cars because of those nostrils either side of the nose. They should, in theory, be the fastest cars around this circuit. But as we can see, and it was no different at Barber Motorsports Park, Braden Nicol can wheel a Pro 1500 class car and keep that mid-corner momentum up sufficiently to be quickest overall. So the checker flag has come out on this session. That is practice 2 of the Radical Cup North America Series here from WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca as part of the Monterey Grand Prix. Scott Wagner peeling off. It's Braden Nicol who's been the benchmark in this one. Of course, it's just for bragging rights at the moment. It's qualifying next, and we'll see who can put it on top. There are 3 McDonald's pole awards up for grabs, 1 for each class, and a point as well for those drivers. It's important to take the pole, get the point, and the McDonald's pole award. It's Braden Nicol who looks certainly very, very capable of doing that in Pro 1500. John Field, who retakes place as the pole or the pace setter in the Platinum class. It was Louis Schreiber this morning. He's down in 17th in this session, and then Brady Clapham's put in a burner as well. 4th quickest in Pro 1340. So if you thought Braden Nicol was quick, look at Brady Clapham in Pro 1340. I think the track just started to clean up and dry up in those final moments because Brady Clapham's also put in a burner in the 127s as well.
All right. And you got the 54 car behind them.
Yeah, Luke Kendall doing a sterling job. So Sam McDougall also. Look, we said they'd be quick, and Sam extremely quick. The 206, another local to look out for this weekend, racing for Cameron Racing. Another one behind them too in Ryan Persing, the number 19, and Cameron Racing will be ones to watch out for in qualifying.
6 out of your top 10 rookies.
Yeah,
1 Gold Cup entry, 2 Gold Cup entries. That's just quite a loaded field, to say the least.
It is. Very, very big competition in all 3 classes. Andy Lowe will be one to look out for. Chris McMurray, we mentioned earlier. Spencer Schmidt, Louis Schreiber, Matt Roma. Honestly, I could list out all the names down this field because they're all capable of being up the pointy ends of their respective classes. And qualifying is next. Of course, a race coming your way this afternoon as well.
Absolutely.
That's race 1 of the Radical Cup North America Series.
So, yeah, although it's practice day, we are going to have some race action at the end of the day. We've got some qualifying coming up here very shortly. But right now, our next on-track activity is going to be some car corral laps. And then we are getting into practice session number 2 of the Porsche Sprint Cup.
Legends never die when the world is calling you. Can you hear them screaming out your name? Legends never die, they become a part of you. Every time you bleed for reaching greatness, relentless, you survive. turn.